Hi there, and welcome to yet another episode of The Inevitable. This is the podcast where us MotorTrend people, we talk about the future of the automobile. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? We're talking about things like electric vehicles, powered by maybe other sources like hydrogen, cars that drive themselves, cars that don't have steering wheels. We talk to all sorts of people, the people making these cars, thinking about these cars, and designing the interiors of their cars, like our guest today, Rekha Meena, who is in charge of
color and materials for Volvo, the mothership headquarters out of Sweden.
And she's interesting because she's not from Sweden, and she's not even from anywhere near Europe, and pretty fascinating story. And we'll get to that in a second. I just want to say once again, I am Johnny Lieberman. I'm joined as always by Ed Lowe.
Hello.
And this is what we do. We like to talk about the future of the automobile.
Yeah, and I'm stoked. I'm super excited because we haven't gone this deep on design with a specialist like Rekha.
Yeah, we talk to like head of designs, and they're in charge of people like her.
Right.
But I'm always really fascinated, especially like, look, you know, Volvos, they got to be safe, they got to be luxurious to some degree. But you know, what does that mean? Designing for safety? What is a luxury designer do in the age of sustainability and CO2 reduction?
Right.
You know, like
literally, what to put it much more simply, this is the person who is in charge of everything your eyes will see and your hand will touch.
That's right.
In the car, and it's like, what's she all about, and what's her thought process, especially when you put it up against what you were saying, when you look at it through the lens of carbon reduction, like animal welfare, like treating animals right if you're going to use their products,
right? Or can you even use animals anymore?
Right.
Like it'll be fascinating. It's one of those weird things. Like we spend so much time, I don't know, as a car culture, talking about exterior design.
Right.
But it seems that people really do care about interiors much more than like maybe I do, or that I you know what I mean? Like I there's so many times when it's like, oh, I won't buy a Corvette because I hate the interior. It's like, yeah, but man, if you've driven it handles so well. Right. And like it's a bargain. It's half the price of a 911 and it outperforms it. But like, I hate the interior.
Well, I go the other way, which is like, you guys are all like, well, not just you, like the whole world is like, you know, pooping all over like the BMWs, like the big nostril design, and it's like, it's great, but that's like the outside of the car, and you look at that in your driveway, that's fine. If you live in LA, you're going to spend like 2-3 hours a day in the driver's seat.
I mean, how was your commute this morning?
Yeah. I drove here and it was an hour plus sitting in traffic. And I happen to have a nice interior. I'm in this new GMC Sierra pickup truck, which has lots of screens and leather and all that stuff. But that's where you're spending your time. It's an insane process that most people don't understand. This Rekha has to balance stuff that looks good, feels good, needs to last a long time, but also can't be too expensive because they have to. She has to figure out like what to put on the dash, what to put on the door card. How deep is the carpet that you're going to put on the transmission tunnel or on the floor? Like
it's all a cost analysis,
right? And then she's going to layer on like, what is this doing for the environment? So this should be a wild and fascinating conversation that I am very much looking forward to.
All right, well then let's get into it. Let's welcome Rekha Meena to The Inevitable.
All righty, so welcome Rekha Meena, Senior Design Manager, Volvo Cars out of Sweden. She's really done us a favor here and staying late over there and to chat with us.
Yeah, as you were saying, it probably violates many EU and Swedish laws to be working this late.
But we don't care. We're Americans. We work all the time. So thank you again. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to talk about sustainability, particularly from your area of expertise, which is automotive interior design, because you have a long history, not just in the automotive business, in the automotive world, but you've done all sorts of fun things. My understanding is you've worked with silks, you've done some hotel interior design. You have, I think, a lot of expertise in like high traffic, like wear and trying to do things with making spaces livable and usable, but also beautiful and inviting and all of that. Would that be accurate?
Oh, thanks for that nice introduction, Edward. And it's a pleasure to be with you today online and discussing around what we are doing at Volvo Cars and about myself a little bit.
Yep. Just so we get a full picture. You have a master's in textile design from what apparently is the foremost design institute in India, the National Institute of Design. I was curious, just thinking about it. What do you learn? What do you learn as a master's of textile design?
Masters means you learn more about your area, especially the textile design. And we learn everything. You take weaving, you take printing, craft techniques, dyeing. It covers bigger spectrum. And while we learn about textile design, we also learn about how to place color and materials at the same time in the bigger picture. And during that time when I did my master's, I also played around working with lamp design. So, I designed some lamps for the hotel interiors, even big canopies, the home furnishing. I think when you learn textile design, you have quite a bigger scope. You can do fashion as well. You can do home furnishing. Like now I'm in car world, so right. You have a bigger scope over there.
Well, let me ask you, how did you get to the car world? Because I would think, like, it isn't. Let me put it this way: when you were at school, is this like one day you're like, oh, I'll be living in Sweden designing car interiors, or was this like a roundabout? Like, how did this happen?
I never planned to be here in Sweden, but in life you don't plan things, and it's the fun. You go by the flow. So I start with my childhood memories from where it comes to the car design industry. My father, he used to take us for the joyrides when I was a small child, like 4 years old. And when I was doing those joyrides, I had a full, feeling about the speed.
Mm-hmm.
That is something I got fascinated from my childhood. And after that, I still remember when I was in grade 9, I saw one TV series which was about Udan means the flight. So there was a female from a small town and she wanted to become a pilot.
Right.
And I was like, again, this speed is much, much faster than what I have experienced so far through joyrides or my two-wheelers. So from there, I wanted to become a pilot, but unfortunately that couldn't happen due to my dad passed away quite early. Mm. But then I got opportunity to go into, textile world. And from textile world, when I was doing the hotel interiors, it's all about space. It's all about experience and people. I thought if I can play with such a big space, how about going into a small space? Hmm. And that small space, because again, it's coming to the speed and, my previous background, I thought let's try something completely different. Forget about textile world. I used to take so much challenges in my life. I never used the safe path. So I thought let's try car design industry. And in car design, because it's such a tiny, small space if you compare with the hotel interiors.
Sure.
And how you can bring that experience back, which I was giving inside the hotel room, inside the car, or the home feeling inside the car. So I think that time I took this challenge, though I still remember a lot of my friends, they were like, what are you doing? What is this car design business? Because in India at that time, the car business was developing and there were nobody taking care of the color and material design. It was like non-existing.
Sure. Black plastic, so black fabric.
I thought let's take this path and try something.
And where did you start at? I imagine because you probably didn't start at Volvo. You probably started at which company?
Yeah, I started with Suzuki Motors in India.
Suzuki.
And yes.
Okay. Now, a lot of Americans don't know this, but Suzuki, I believe, has like the best-selling car in the world. It's like something. It's because it's huge in the Indian market. and also in China. I can't think of the what's
Swift.
Is it the Swift?
Might have been the Swift.
Yes. Yeah, there are so many models, and in India they are number one. So now they are making more than 2 million cars per year.
Right, which is nuts. Yeah. And but again, like we used to have, we still have Suzuki motorcycles in the U.S. market. We had cars on and off again for a long time. Finally, they sort of exited the market.
We might have helped them with that. That's the running joke.
Well, we tried our best with Suzuki. But so that's a big company to start at. I mean, that's a massive. And again, I know in India they're bigger than anywhere else.
Yeah, they are the number one still in India. But I must say, when I joined Suzuki Cars, there was no female designer in the company.
Sure.
I was the first one in the design. And then there was no color material design in India. So I could say, in a way, I'm kind of first one from India working in this industry.
Now, what about now? Are there more women in the Indian car industry? So I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with it. I mean, I know like it's a big growing market, and I know Suzuki's number one. That's about all I know.
Compared to I would say in last 15 or 17 years, the females number is growing in automotive industry because it's been dominated by male all the time.
Sure.
And at Volvo Car, that's why I'm very happy. Here, the gender equality, and there are so many things which help female to be in the car industry. Right. So I feel quite different. Though there are more in India, but I feel we have more at Volvo Cars compared to the rest of the world.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you're the first woman to join the design team at Suzuki India, and then prior to your arrival, they didn't have anybody doing color and material. So that must have been it was wide open, right? Like, were you talking, the interiors must have been like gray and black and neutral shades. Like what?
It was, I'm sure it was black plastic and black fabric, right?
What was this must have been this is wide open. What was your first big change? What were you let's bring some color or a texture? What was that like?
Yeah, actually, the thing was Maruti Suzuki. The Indian name is Maruti Suzuki.
Right.
They were taking everything from Japan. And what happens when you bring the Japanese culture, color, materials, they don't make any sense in India because India is a colorful country.
Right.
I'm born and brought up with colors, So when I joined, I questioned a lot of things. This doesn't fit in Indian market. Why we are doing this? And from there, I think they had a trust in me. They said, okay, you go ahead, explore the world, the Indian market. And we used to do a lot of, I started by using a lot of interaction with the customers. So I understood more about what is the requirement for Indian market because North, South, East, West, they are completely like Europe.
Right.
The people in North like different shade of red, while in South it will be completely different red. So I spent some time, and then finally I was lucky to propose, so many variety of colors for the Indian market.
But that's fascinating, real quick, because I'm trying to. I can't think of another single country where actual color preferences would be different. Like usually, if BMW, for instance, does a car for the North American market, it's just that's for the North American market. The differences are more like if you're going to be this far north, you got to have all-wheel drive. You can get away with rear drive down south. But are there other markets where that's happened? Where I need a different shade of gray for California than I do for New York? I've never heard of that. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Especially for the neutral shades like black, gray, white, you don't see much difference. But the bigger difference you see in the shade of blues. Like if you see even the Volvo blue color compared to the Audi or BMW, it's completely different because our main core is Scandinavian design. It comes from the region where we are. So you will always see the difference in the bright shades more compared to the neutral shades.
So, but that again, that is, I just find that really fascinating that well, first of all, it again, when you said, oh, they're just using Japanese colors in a different market, the Germans are notorious for that. German car interiors are just black pit, and I think that's one thing we've always appreciated.
How dare you.
They are. It's one thing we've always appreciated about Volvos. Like when you're comparing them, it's like there's this Swedish, Scandinavian sort of sensibility and lightness compared to like Audi, Mercedes, and BMW. It's just sort of like black on black with like red lights. It's very like Darth Vader-y.
Well, if we can talk about that a little bit, because you had a very successful career at Maruti Suzuki. You won a few design awards, is my understanding. And then, so how did you get poached to Volvo? How did you make that jump from, biggest car brand in India to, Volvo and move to Sweden? Like that's a big jump.
Yes, it is. Well, I was, after 10 years spending in Maruti Suzuki, I was looking for, when I come into comfort zone, that's the place or that's the moment I want to change. So that happened with my career as well. And I was looking for more premium brands to work and just to experience how they approach compared to the mainstream brand. So I applied to several companies, and Volvo car was one of them. And I love Scandinavian design, and I was lucky to get through the Volvo car placement. It took some time, but I'm here today. Yeah.
So it was the position was it was in Sweden. It wasn't like, oh, you work in the local market or another market. It was like you're going right to the mothership.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
The position was put on the Car Design News, the career option. So
sure.
I noticed over there, and then I applied for it.
What is that like? Do they, these days, there's all these tales, and if you work in like the tech industry, you have to like prepare a case study, or they're going to give you some weird test. Like, when you go in for a design position, do they ask you to like draw something, sketch something, show your work, like, or what? Like, is there a weird like pop quiz that you get, or no?
Not weird, but I think when some non-European applies to the European companies, I think they have to go through a process, and that's what Volvo did. There were online 2-3 exams online, and then online interviews. Finally, my portfolio I presented physically here, but I sent through, email as well. And the final discussion was 1-to-1. So your HR is talking to you. How will you deal this situation? Those kind of. I still remember some questions were asked, but I think that's a normal process to understand the person to whom we are taking. Will this person fit in this Swedish Scandinavian environment or not? So
Sure.
I think that's a normal process.
But that's got to be kind
But
of.
it was fun, yeah.
It was fun.
But it's got to be kind of a crazy thing. Like, okay, hey, what did you tell your bosses back at Suzuki? Like, I've got to go to Sweden for some reason, and I need to.
It's just time off. It's just time off, man.
I'm going. Like, was it like right? That's got to be kind of tricky.
Yeah, they were a bit sad, but at the same time they were happy.
Sure.
So they were happy that she will learn something new now. Right. And I'm a person who loves in continuous, learning. It's like unending for me. I keep on learning new things, keep on exploring the problem with the different ways. So they were happy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, they gifted me, I still remember they said, you are going to a cold country. You will need these kind of socks, these kind of warmers.
Right.
So I got special gift from my Suzuki colleagues from Japan, the full packet of warm clothes.
Nice. How's your Swedish coming along?
I speak working language, you can say, because in Sweden everyone speaks English.
Yes, well,
so it's not a dying situation.
And also, I mean, Volvo. I've a few times I've gone over to Sweden to be with Volvo. They have a lot of people that aren't Swedish working there. So it's a pretty international, pretty multinational. Thank you, but an international cast of characters.
Yeah.
That's.
So you land in Sweden. You're doing color materials at Volvo. Other than the temperature swing and difference in topography and everything that goes along with it, what's the work has to be quite different, right? You said you went because you wanted to be at a premium brand. So all of a sudden you're dealing with different kinds of cars, different price points, different expectations.
Yeah, and you can spend more money, on an interior for a Volvo than for a Suzuki.
So what was the first product you worked on? At Volvo?
Yeah, the first one was 360C concept car. If you remember, we made a sleeping car.
Yeah,
that was my first project. Then I worked on XC40. So PHEVs, and the recent one was the BEV cars.
Right.
And then moved on to the C40 car, which I think you have already seen. We have launched it last year. And then I'm working on some interesting future projects as well.
Sure.
Yeah. But as you discussed, what was the difference between working with the previous company and this company? I would say the process is same, but the mindset is different. Because in all car industries, the designing process are quite similar. You design first exterior, same time interior, and the color material comes in between. What I really like about the Volvo, we are very honest brand. And that reflects in our everyday working style. Name it any material, we will be honest to tell what is it. We don't hide.
Right.
So that's the beauty I really like about Volvo.
Okay.
And then the gender equality, there is so much respect. Everyone's opinion matters. The hierarchy is less. That is something was really surprising to me. How come it's kind of a flat organization in this company compared to rest of the world, which was very unique to me. And I think there is a reason behind it. In design industry, especially working in car industry, I think you don't need so much layers in between.
Right. And that's got to be pretty liberating, just to be able to go to your job and not have to worry about being heard, and not have to worry about sexism, and not have to worry about 15 layers of bureaucracy. I mean, that's got to be like a nice environment where you can do better work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, you mentioned the 360, the 360, the concept car. Was that because you had a hotel background where they said, hey, like, you're used to designing spaces where people sleep, like, make a car where they sleep? Was that...
You can say that, but I think the main reason was because I had experience working with concept cars. So at Suzuki Cars, I worked on 5 concept cars. So for them, they thought maybe she will handle it quickly, or maybe that was the thought. And definitely because of the experience, yes.
Okay. And actually, I was when you were talking about earlier, I was just fascinated. Like, what are the similarities and what are the differences between designing a hotel room and a car interior? Because it's what I spent a lot of time in both, and it's there's got to be like, oh yeah, this,
Johnny spends a lot of time trashing both. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, I do. Yeah.
But the one red thread is when you open the hotel room, or let's say your home, the new home room. When you open the door, it's about the feeling. You need to get that cozy comfort feeling. And that is what we try at Volvo Car. When you open the door of the car, it gives you that kind of feeling. So from feeling perspective, we really work on those criteria. But when it comes to space, definitely it's more difficult, because now there is a small room. You need to put all your details, materials, texture, feeling, everything in that tiny room. And the other thing, whatever I'm designing for the car today, it will live forever, maybe for next 15 or 20 years. And it should look fresh all the time. But while you work on hotel interiors or your home interiors,
Right.
you can change in like 6 months. You can change it in 1 month if you don't like it.
Right.
So that's the challenge for us.
Oh, that's
That
fascinating. There's a permanence to car design, which is absent from building design.
What about
interior? Interesting.
What about this is funny, I think. What about smell? You're a color materials person, so that's like eyes and hands. But like you were saying hotel rooms, right? But the first thing I do, and it's not on purpose. It's just when you open a hotel, like you said, you open the hotel room door and you walk in. I'm always going, what is this? What's that smell? Like,
Yes.
was that? Did that is that part of your process or has it been part of your process for the hotel industry or for cars? Are you literally just I'm interested in how it feels and how it looks. Like someone else can worry about whether it's off-gassing some weird compound.
Yeah, for us also smell is one of the, I think it comes under one of the tests that our material should not smell bad.
Right.
So we really take care about it. Yeah.
It is,
but not like hotel room fragrance, which you can change like every time.
Right. No, but it's interesting. Like certain cars, like like Audis, to me, they always have like when they're brand new, and it's just like the glue they use has like a fish odor to it, and Corvettes just sort of smell like industrial plastics for about 6 months. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't remember. I had a Volvo for a year. I don't remember it smelling. So yeah.
So when you were talking about the material usage and Volvo being a very honest company about it, when you made the jump, I would assume that means for you that you had an opportunity to use more premium materials, a wider array. So, and I don't want to disparage, Suzuki, but like
it's a different market.
You probably had more like leather and real wood to work with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying here, because when you work with value for money brands, it's a different approach. When you work with the premium brands, you use real materials. That's the major difference. So, of course, we have used leather in our previous cars. We have used wood, aluminium, recycled material. Now we are working in the future towards making more CO2, less CO2 or, environmental friendly materials going forward. So that's the major difference. Yeah.
Do you get? I think I know the answer, but I always am fascinated by it. Like, do you get? Like, I know, like, when like Mercedes makes a new car, your engineering team, they get it and they tear it apart and they look at like mechanically, electronically what's going on. Do you get to do the same thing with competitor interiors?
Oh well, we look at interiors, what is happening in the world and across different brands, and I think it's a normal practice every car brand does. They kind of check
benchmark, right?
For benchmarking purpose. So it's not literally we take something from there, but you learn something out of it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I was just wondering if I remember years ago when it was like, I'm getting old, like over a decade ago when a particular S-Class came out. And it was really like a big jump. And I remember I was talking to some BMW guys, and I said, "What did your interior people think when they saw that?" And he looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, they cried," right. Because it was such a jump, So, but I imagine like you do get to learn a lot. I mean, you got to see what everyone else is up to, and then.
Well, going back to your formal education, I'm struck by. Now, again, I'm trying to understand textile, like learning about it. Were you prepared to work with all these, like leather and wood and like how do you learn about that if you didn't? And again, I don't know what a master's degree and how far that goes into, but I assume like when you're learning textiles, you probably touch other non-woven materials like leather, but do you learn about like using wood and accent pieces and aluminum? Is that part of it, or was this stuff that you pick up along the way?
No, I think you don't learn those things, but my other batchmates, they were doing, product design, so they were playing with wood. Lifestyle accessory people, they were playing with leather. So it's like I learned by looking at it, but nobody teaches you when you learn textile design. And I think there are only few institutes today who are teaching color material finishes in their education. And I'm a bit surprised. Why? Because this is such a big area in a car industry, but the exposure is very low.
And
so, it's interesting too because it's going to get much more important because as we kind of move towards autonomy. Like the interior experience is going to become, much more important than say like the driving experience since you're not driving. You're going to be sitting in the car. And so it's right. I mean,
well, do you agree with that statement that are we looking towards a future where the work you do is even more important because there's less stuff for the occupants to do. Like we're not going to be full attention on the road. We're going to be maybe more attention on our occupants or what's going on the screens. Is that sort of accurate, high-level description?
I would say it's important. Today it was important in the past and will be important in future.
Okay.
Because I think I tell a lot of people, color material design gives life to a car. Otherwise, it's just a box. There is no emotion, no belongingness, no feeling. And we add that feeling through by our honest materials, textures, haptic feeling, the overall belongingness to the car. So I think color material finish has been very important and will be very important in car industry.
So you don't think it's going to become more important?
It will definitely.
Oh, okay.
It's important. Will be more important
when
now the electric world is coming. It's already there, and we will be going more. By 2040, we have aimed to become carbon neutral company. So for the designer at this point, I would say at this point, for any young designer, it's like a clean slate. You can start your life with completely new. And when you talk about people like us who are experienced, we still have little bit preconceived mind from the petrol cars, from that world. So I think it's a very interesting time for any new designer to explore this territory.
I would agree. I'm fascinated by what you think. Like, what should our expectation be of the future and all of this technology in the car, right? I think the analogy has always been your car is gonna be like your phone, right? Because these cars are becoming smarter and more, and the touchscreens everywhere. But I just got a new iPhone. It's a cold slab of mostly metal and glass. Do cars need to match that, to have that slick, hard, cold feel? Is that what we're all destined for? The leading EV manufacturer out there has a very Scandinavian minimalist approach to the interior.
It's not even the Scandinavian, just nothing.
Right. But like what is the future of the car from a color and material standpoint? Like, does it need to have a warmth to it? Does it need to have fuzzy, like warm, like touches, or does it need to match the coldness and the in your face, the dazzle of the screens? Or is there another option completely?
I feel technology should become more warm, actually. It has been showcased as really cold, like you just mentioned. But going ahead in the future, we should bring more warmth inside the interior. And I think we are quite best when it comes to our brand, Scandinavian Design. We bring that kind of a cozy feeling through our, the minimalistic, more functional, more, modern approach all the time. So I would say we can bring a lot of warmth inside the interior, and technology should become warm, as I just mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, because the exterior of cars are metal and glass. That's about it. So the interior should probably
could
contrast that.
Somebody could cover it in fur.
But they're not going to.
Or chia seeds.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to poke you a little bit on this, Rekha, because I agree. I have driven actually the C40 in the launch edition. So it's a beautiful fjord blue color, and it has a really unique material in there. It's I believe it's a 30% wool, 70% polyester blend, which I agree. Even when it's blue, it provides a level of warmth and sort of a nice surface to touch. And Johnny and I were actually talking about how it's actually kind of a throwback material too to the earliest days of like luxury automobiles. And I didn't know, he actually told me this, like, back in the day, rich people didn't sit on leather. Leather was for the driver up front in the car under like the landaulet roof, because if it rained,
they had no roof, so leather was waterproof.
The rich people in the back sat on wool
or silk,
right? So I get that this is this offers both the sustainability you're looking for and the warmth, but then the other really interesting feature of this launch edition C40 is this. The topographic map that you've put in front of the front passenger of a park apparently in Sweden. But can recycled plastic, even when it's cool and neatly designed and backlit, does that satisfy this sort of warmth? Is it like, how do you get people to see plastic as premium? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think that's the again, preconceived notion in our head. We think plastic is cheap, but plastic can be very expensive. You can make it really look very premium. And that's one of the best example till now we did for C40, the backlit topography deco. And maybe I can share you why it looks premium.
Okay, so for people listening, we're starting with a PowerPoint presentation, but if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll be able to see this.
This is cool. Like, admittedly, I love the thought that is into this, which is, and I think you're seeing this for the first time, right, Johnny?
No, I've seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it in the plastic.
In the plastic, yes.
So for those listening at home, we're looking at it's a strip of plastic on the front of the dash of the vehicle in front of the front passenger.
Yeah, so normally there'd be like a piece of aluminum there or a piece of leather or something.
Very popular, have like open pore wood.
Yeah, open pore wood, and this is the Abisko National Park landscape, and it's
a top-down topographical map. So it's got these lines showing like elevation ostensibly, and it's also what's neat about it is it's backlit. So at night, it gives you that light show.
Yeah, and one of the example, as I said, we get really inspired from the nature. All the color material designers, they love nature, and this is one of the example. The designer got inspired from this, the topographic, very famous Abisko National Park, and I was there last year during summer break. Beautiful place.
Sure.
So when you see the top view, you really find these contours, which we really find very interesting for this car. And we were thinking, okay, how can we achieve this one? And there was only one way, by introducing the light in this deco. And that's where the technology meets the functionality, And what we did, we simply made different layers of the plastic, and the B surface is recycled plastic. The A surface we are aiming to have in recycled plastic as well. So when you use the transparency of the plastic material, it can look very premium. So you see one of the little animation over here, how it gives like life to the overall surface.
And are you getting the different color striations? Are you getting that through different thicknesses of plastic, so they're more transparent?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the plastic.
Oh, that's
it's
pretty.
It's only one color. It's just the different thickness of the plastic gives you this layered effect.
So you would, I guess I'm trying to think of other materials you could do this with. Would be like, what else is transparent? Glass. You'd have different thickness of glass, but then you have glass on a really bad spot inside of a car. You don't want glass there. So that is innovative. That's pretty cool.
And glass will be heavier for this area, and it won't pass a lot of your crash tests.
That's why I said it's in a bad place. Yeah, you could not crash it.
Yeah.
That's it's fascinating.
Just to explain again, and for our audience, can you explain? So the B surface is recycled, and what is an A surface and a B surface for our listeners?
For us, the A surface, which your eye can see, and the B surface, which an engineer eye can see.
Okay.
Right.
So all the fixtures on the backside of the topography deco is the B surface.
Right.
And that's quite a big amount.
Sure.
Compared to the A surface.
Right, because it's got to be held in place and all that. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's so this is exclusive to this Abisko panel is exclusive to the launch edition vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes. This is in C40 car today, and we are bringing this in XC40 electric car as well.
Okay. So is there a lower level vehicle? What would be here instead?
In the local level, we have, if you remember when we launched our first XC40, that time we brought the city in place of the topography deco. So we had a city map, we call it Origin. It's, our Gothenburg area from where we belong to. So it's again the city view from the top. And that's without backlit.
Right.
And in this case, we went more cross-country side. So again, the same journey, but with more electrification in it.
Right. That's cool, though. It's a great use of space, and it's something different, and it's a cool use of materials.
And so there will be no version of this panel will never be covered in in leather or wood or a natural material as far as that's a conscious decision on the part of you and Volvo to make sure, like, because this is ostensibly it's made from recycled materials, or it can be recycled as part of your mission of circular sustainability, correct?
Yeah. And, we have a similar space for our XC40, which is non-electric, and we give wood. We also give aluminium on those areas. But for this car, as you just mentioned, we wanted to be more electric, and that's why we brought this more of technology and functionality, plus the Scandinavian roots in this design. But it can be different material, but again, we will question the sustainability part of it.
Right, and especially going forward.
That's an interesting
yes.
That's an interesting take on your customer, right? You're assuming that the customer who's buying a battery electric vehicle has a native interest in sustainability, because you're giving them only that option, whereas your gas burning customer, you're saying, here's some leather and wood. So that's unique.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's every single car has this thing above the glove box, and so it's like, and everyone uses it, especially in the we're talking about the luxury car market here. It's mostly either aluminum or wood. So yeah, it's fascinating, just to do something with plastic that's sort of higher end.
Right.
I think is pretty cool. So can you talk to us about the sustainability part of, because a lot of people don't think, they're just like, it's got like leather and plastic, and they don't think about like the CO2 emissions, to grow the cows or to to shape the plastic. Like, so how do you approach that?
It's not, it's not only about sustainability. Now we are talking a bigger picture, circular sustainable business going forward. And that is Volvo's aim now. By 2040, we will be carbon neutral company. And by 2030, we will become fully electric brand. Mm-hmm. And by 2025, we are already worked on reducing a lot of materials, lightweight and, recycled materials. So 25% materials inside the car will be from recycled or bioattributed resources. I think it's the requirement of the time today. I think everyone is working towards, and Volvo is always striving for giving back to the nature and saving the planet, because our brand is all about people and the people who care for the environment. So I think it's very interesting for us to work on these kind of paths.
So let me ask you this then, going with that, and we're part of the reason we do this podcast is because, yes, we understand that's where the industry's going.
Climate change is inevitable.
Yeah.
So,
but like, what would a Volvo in 2040 look like? Like, how would it be different than the 2023 model?
It will be quite different, definitely. I can't reveal everything today.
Not everything, but like, broad strokes.
The one thing which I can say, it will be circular sustainable. So all the materials might be from recycled resources or recyclable or from bioattributed, more natural organic materials inside the car.
So let's talk about the bioattributable. So I think one of them is it's a woven fabric that uses a flax. Is that right? A flax derivative, a plant-based?
Flax composite, we used for our concept recharge.
Okay. And what are the challenges? I think one of the questions I think Johnny was trying to get to is if you really want to be carbon neutral or fully circular sustainable, right, you could drive yourself crazy thinking about how far back you have to go, right? Like, I need samples of this material, but if I order them from the supplier, they have to put it on a plane, and that plane is going to generate some volume of CO2 emissions, and how do I offset that? Or, should we even meet in person to discuss this project we're working on, because that involves us, everybody driving in some kind of vehicle or getting together, and, how to have such a laudable goal, but also try to build new cars.
Right, you still got to sell cars.
You still got to sell cars. You could drive yourself nuts trying to lessen your own impact in this whole process? I mean, or do I have that all wrong?
No, you're right, and that's why our whole supply chain, within the company, outside suppliers, we are working with all of them to make circular, sustainable, smart solution. And yeah, definitely, I think it's always good to have a local production so you have less aeroplane visits
Right.
with your material. So it's a big question, and there is no right answer today, but everyone is working to solve this issue.
So when you look at oh, sorry.
Yeah, and the best would be if we have our own materials here in Sweden, if we are making car in Sweden. If we are making car in China, then China production, local material. That is the best case scenario.
Okay.
And I think that would be the future as well.
Okay. Well, how do you how do you end up picking a new fabric that involves for instance, like this flax-based composite? Like and is that part of your remit? Like, is that part of your job in like actually figuring out which is the ideal, or do you end up working, you want, like, I have a certain look I want to go for, a certain feel, or it needs to have this kind of durability, and then you work with others in terms of the sourcing? Or is this all you and your team?
I think it's a team effort. So we have a team of specialists, and they are the ones who are dealing with all the suppliers. And then supplier is also bringing new materials. What is the future? So it's the teamwork. And definitely we are the first one who should say, okay, I want this, or this is not correct. Can you change this? And that time when we were working on concept recharge, we found this fantastic flex composite with our BCom supplier. And the best thing about the flex composite, it's lightweight, but it's really strong, just like carbon fibers. Mm-hmm. That's what we loved it. And it has 50% natural fibers, like from the flex linseed plant. And you can mix with the PP like a plastic to make it more strong. And it's such a lightweight. Like, you can compare with any of the plastic in the car, still it is lightweight and more stronger. And still you have more natural materials in it. So you kind of reduce the plastic from the car.
Right.
And that's the beauty of new materials in future. And
it's funny to hear like a luxury brand talking about lightweight, because people don't know this, like how much a car interior actually weighs, like how much leather actually is a very heavy material. And like I remember we had two Audis we were testing, and they were the same car, different interiors, and one was like 180 pounds heavier, and there was no difference except for a full leather interior based compared to a much lower trim level. And it just struck me like, wow, I had no idea. So you're thinking about that, not only it makes the car handle better, but also like from a sustainability mindset.
Well, everything, efficiency. Yeah. When you think about where this is all going, electric vehicles right now, they're so heavy. That is going to be the final frontier for EVs, right? Is weight, like, because you're limited by the number of cells you need to put in the car, and like the chemistry is heavy. So anywhere you can do the light weighting, I think is fascinating. And so this material is a linseed plant and PP polypropylene, right? Is that correct? Yeah. So it's fantastic. It's light.
And it must
be expensive, right? I mean, there's a what's the downside of these new materials, right? They're not available, so there's a cost component. Is that correct? Or
yeah, today they are expensive, but 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, they will be normal for everyone. Everyone can afford them.
And what are you using this material for inside the interiors?
I don't know if you have noticed on the concept recharge, we have used this on quite a big areas. So it was on the seat back, you replace the hard plastic. On the door, IP lower, tunnel console, you can use on a lot of big areas. That's the beauty actually about this material. It's like you compress it and you can get any shape out of it.
Right. So it's being used like carbon fibers use, like in
Yeah, you can say it's the new carbon fiber.
Okay,
but carbon fiber is not environmental friendly. This is more environmental friendly.
Right.
So it's interesting though, because you're working at a premium brand and you want to convey that sense of premiumness. And you just said this material is expensive. Can you leverage that? Can you say like, hey guys, this is both an environmentally more sustainable composite we have, and it's very expensive. So is it not possible to communicate that these new materials are sort of more luxurious because they're more exotic, like carbon fiber? You know, carbon fiber when it first came out, everyone's like, that thing, that's weird. And look at that weave. It's from race cars, and it's hideously expensive to make. And now it's like
kind
around
everywhere.
It's on your shifter surround.
Yeah, and it's and it's also just baked plastic at the end of the day. It's not very sexy.
Is that on your radar in terms of trying to communicate that, like a new luxury materials? Or
you rightly said these are the new luxury materials, especially for the electric cars, because for us the weight and, as I said, the warmth feeling inside the interior is more important. Well, I won't say expensive, but today they are expensive because you have only few suppliers who can work around such technologies. But going in future, because everyone wants to have them, it will become like a normal plastic material.
Right. So the cost will come way down.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yes,
one going back into your past, I saw that you worked at a company called Bharat Silks.
Bharat Silk.
Right.
Yes.
So I was very curious. Is silk anywhere in the future materials radar? Like, is it? First of all, I know I'm Chinese, so we have a history with silk, right? I know it comes from it's a natural material. It's spun from little insects. But does that actually make it? Is there any hope for silk? Is it sustainable? I know it's beautiful, takes color really well, feels really nice.
Costs a fortune.
Costs a fortune, and I think it's not. It's strong by weight, but it's not particularly
durable,
wear resistant. Is all this accurate, or?
You can make it wear resistant. That's not a problem. But at the same time, when we talk about circular sustainability, we also talk about animal welfare and traceability. So during the silk production, you might kill some insect. We need to take care of such things.
Really?
But it can be used. It's not a problem. You have to just mix it with polyester, then it will become durable for cars.
Because I know, not famously, but a few years ago, Rolls-Royce rolled out a car that had a silk interior, and it added $1 million to the price. It was, it was really, it was all silk. It was very nice.
You can't feed them the finest organic mulberry leaves.
I think they just die, though. Rekha, that's your point, right? Is that these animals don't survive the process?
Yes.
Wow.
And for Volvo cars, it's very important, especially for our wool textile. We have animal welfare and traceability in place. That's how we are providing in our cars. Otherwise, we won't do it.
But are you still using leather?
We have leather in our diesel cars. Okay. So we have in 60, 90 cars still.
So, which is a great question, because I was wondering, so there is, assuming, the 2040 carbon neutrality statement and circular sustainability, you're likely, and again, you don't have to break any news here, but I would imagine you're probably
you're going to
have to phase out cows, right? Or does circular sustainability encompass the ability to use
expensive cows?
Well, no, use the materials from cows that are already being processed for their meat, right? Like if you or can you just not do that because of the animal welfare portion? You know what I'm saying? Like let's say there was a humane butcher or abattoir or whatever, and the animal is being harvested already for its meat,
and it's grass fed, so it's the carbon,
right? The whole thing, right? It's got to say it spent all its time outside. It was very happy, and it was humanely slaughtered. And you have this, you wouldn't want to waste that. So does that not fit in a circular sustainability model, or it just doesn't fit in Volvo's model?
If you talk about leather as a material, it's very durable. Nobody denies that part. But if you talk about the animal welfare and the cattle farming. There's so much CO2 emission which is happening.
Right.
And if you see the trend where the conscious customer who is not eating meat, this is also decreasing. And from the ethical standpoint of view, Volvo decided not to use leather in our future electric cars at all.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
That is the main reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
but that, I mean, I'll tell you, like, look, living out here in Los Angeles, I have a lot of friends ask me, like, hey, can I get this car, whatever it is, without leather? And I was like, no, it just comes with leather. They're like, but I'm a vegan, I don't want it. And I go, well, then don't buy it. And so that it does make a lot of sense.
Go down to AutoZone and get some car seat covers.
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. So.
No, and when you compare with our new latest Nordico material, you must have read our news around it. It's bio-attributed new generation of vinyl. It's lightweight. So if you compare with the leather, the weight per car might be from almost like 2 to 4 kgs less.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, as I said, it's a fantastic time for any designer to be in this automotive industry because there are so many new technologies. Innovations are happening around all the materials. So you can create better material than leather.
Right.
You can create better, you know, there are so many ways to bring new technologies inside the car.
Yeah, and one of my cars has fake leather. It's you know, it's like this vegan leather, whatever it is, and it's nice so far. It's brand new, but it's nice. It feels like leather. Doesn't get quite as hot. Doesn't feel quite as soft, but it's close, you know. So
the goal is circular sustainability. The goal is CO2 emissions primarily, right? Carbon neutrality. But as you introduce more composites, even if they're 30% wool or some portion linseed fiber, it is still plastic. And what is your position or Volvo's position on this, the microplastic phenomenon that we're kind of seeing, which is basically plastics break down, and they're apparently all over the environment. And
we're just loaded with them,
particularly in the ocean and now in our bodies. Because it's not I don't want to cast that the current industry is the issue. I mean, we've had now decades of somewhat irresponsible plastic use and
way to undersell, yeah.
Plastic use, but also disposal.
Yeah.
So now there's the Pacific Gyre. There's this giant man-made island of plastic floating around the Pacific Ocean.
Costa Guatemala is like all plastic.
Right. So I would love to see an all wool interior in a vehicle, right? Or an all some kind of all plant-based fiber. But you need this modern miracle called plastic to help with the durability, the production,
and the lightweighting,
the consistency, right? Or like. So I asked these really long questions. Sorry.
You really do. Yeah.
What's your take on how
does Volvo's position on plastic going forward?
Right.
Going forward, it has to be from recycled resources or recyclable in future.
Okay.
And some of the materials that you must have noticed in C40 car, because you mentioned about the bottles in the ocean, our blue carpet, the pure blue carpet, base carpet, is from the recycled PET bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the best case scenario would be circular, sustainable plastic. You keep on, making something else, giving second life and third life or fourth life. That could be the circular, sustainable business for plastic. And buying what you asked about the Volvo, as we said, we want to bring more bio-based materials inside the car. So you kind of reduce the plastic from the car and you bring more organic material.
Mm-hmm. Right. Look, can I ask you a question? Just because to me, when I think of Volvo, hear the word Volvo, safety. They've done such a good job, like marketing the brand, that it's a safe brand. Does that, when you're designing Volvo interiors, like how front of mind is safety? How much do you have to think about occupant safety in regards to materials, or is that not a consideration?
You're right. We are the most safest brand in the world, and I would say mostly our interior exterior designers, they have to really think about the safety more, though we also take care of the safety from color material perspective. But let's say when they design the seat design should cater the safety of the passenger who's wearing seat belt. So we have all the technical specification which needs to be, get green signal before coming inside the car, and same for the exterior as well. It's always there.
Okay, so could you give us an example of like something that you had to change because of safety? In other words, like, okay, we're going to build it this way, and then whoever the safety
well, I think you mentioned
you comes in
the the Abisko Park, that panel. Like you could have made it.
Yeah.
You could have made it out of anything that was sort of translucent.
Sure.
To light, but then glass is kind of out of the question, right? Or anything that would shatter. So, but again, I answered the question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many areas inside the car. The CSD display, the screen.
Yes.
Till the time Volvo is not convinced about the size of the big screen, we will never provide in our cars. It has to pass all the safety standards.
Right.
You can give like a huge big TV in front of you, but till the time Volvo will not feel comfortable giving those solutions, we will never use those ones.
No, that's fascinating because, like Mercedes, for instance, they have this new Hyperscreen, which is like the entire car, the Cadillac Celestiq. This 55-inch screen. I think it's the biggest screen ever. And also like Ferrari, Porsche, they're putting screens like where that topographical map is. They actually have like a glass screen. So that is interesting.
To be clear, you're talking about from a crash safety perspective of occupants, their heads, their body parts hitting a large, hard panel. Like it's not just because I know the argument too, which is, boy, these are distracting. Like they're big and there's a lot going on, and anything that takes your eyes off the road, maybe you should.
No, but we're talking crash. Yeah,
crash, right? It's all about crash safety.
Yes, and in Volvo cars, that was our motto 5 years back. For 2020, nobody should die or get injured inside the Volvo car, and because of that, we will not give anything which can hurt our occupants.
That's the answer I was looking for. That's fantastic because that's something people don't think about because, and again, you're starting to see bigger and bigger screens. And again, I was sitting inside the Cadillac Celestiq, which is a very cool $300,000 car. But I was looking at this screen. I'm like, that's just so big. I remember when a 55-inch TV was like unthinkable, and there's a screen in a car that's it's the width of the entire car. It's crazy.
Wow.
So
yeah, that can work if car is autonomous drive.
Right.
I don't know, but maybe.
Right. Not just autonomous, like full autonomous, better than anybody out there. Then you can. Well, that's my whole mission. Like I want to get to a point where like we're A-pillars become like the size of straws, right?
Well, but again, I would argue if you're not driving, just get rid of windows.
Right.
It's just
exactly.
Just steel cage the whole thing.
So this is super fascinating. And I do want to go back and just talk a little bit about because we talked about Nordico. We talked about
actually, real quick, I'm going to butt in. I'm butting in. Yeah. All right. So again, like I sadly I've never been to India, but I've spent a lot of time at Indian restaurants and just thinking about India. But I do notice like the pictures and images and videos I see. It's extremely colorful. It's an extremely colorful place and culture, and Hinduism, the religion. And then I'm looking behind you, and I'm looking at these kind of like stark Scandinavian panels of, it's like 3 different grays and these restrained blues and restrained colors. Have you tried, and I assume you're doing this at Suzuki, are you trying to get like Indian flair into Volvo, or is that totally inappropriate?
Well, my experience with India, with Japan, Suzuki, it's always there, and you can see the reflection in inside the cars or outside on which I'm working. So, Fjord Blue is one of the examples.
Gotcha.
Some flavor is there, yeah.
Gotcha.
But still, the main thing we need to consider the Scandinavian design.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. touch is there, but the main
But
criteria
I mean,
is the
just sneak
Scandinavian.
in some saffron or something, just some beautiful yellow or something like that.
Yeah, and I must say one should visit India. If you haven't been there, please go.
It's on the list.
with
I've got a list.
yeah,
Yeah.
complete open mind, no preconceived notion, whatever you see on Netflix or on media.
Well, no, I've been paying attention for a long time, and I eat a lot of Indian food, if that means anything. But I just had some decent curry up in when I was over in London. So
It's a national dish in London.
it's fantastic.
So, we're getting close to time here, but I did want to ask you, the work you do is, you're not an engineer, you're not somebody who's working under the hood. Everything you do, literally color and materials, is for the consumer. It's for their enjoyment. It's literally surrounds them. You are. Fun story about us at MotorTrend, right? Like we do a lot of stories on cars. Obviously, we publish tons of pictures of the most popular things. The first picture everyone wants to look at is it's usually like the front 3/4 view of the car, because that's actually the identifier. Ooh, I want to go look at that picture. But the second most popular picture is the interior. It's from the driver's seat, because the logic is this is where you're going to spend. This is your office. This is where you're going to spend. If you live in LA, you're going to spend like 2 hours a day sitting here. So you better enjoy it. When you think about the customer from a color and materials perspective, what is the thing you want them to notice, like first, or the biggest thing? They open the door, they even before maybe they even get in, but what is the thing that you just want them to go, what?
They should say, wow. When they see any new car, this feeling should come out from their heart, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
How do you...
Wow, and looking, but in specifically at anything, like, are they...
First, the exterior, definitely. That is the first thing anybody notice for the car. And when you open the interior, then you say, damn, this is so beautiful.
And, it's interesting you say that, because again, back to who's Volvo competing against. And I don't know if the word wow came out, but I've definitely opened up Volvos and been like, okay, this is different, and this gets points in my book for just not following the herd and actually daring to do something different. And it's got to be tough to do. It's got to be there's got to be a lot of pressure fighting against anything that's not what's our number one competitor doing? Do that, right?
No, actually, we don't have pressure like this when it comes to color material, because Scandinavian design is everlasting. It doesn't get old with the time. It gives you freshness or kind of a warmth, coziness all the time. If you open your old Volvo car, you will have still same feeling. You will not get bored with it. That's why we don't have so much pressure that the competition is doing, why you are not doing it. And we are very honest with all the materials, so I don't see much stress over there.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
I like this. It's interesting to me, because I hear what you're saying about wow, yes, you want people to react positively, but you're also saying that this needs to be a timeless interior. It needs to be everlasting, which I also get, which I think is like, it's kind of like, how do you hit him with a wow factor and then also have that understatedness? And then the layer on top is, and this is something I think the entire industry is facing, right? These cars now, they're gonna change over time. You can now do these over-the-air updates. You can push new features to the screens, to the menu systems. Do you have to design for that? Do you have to worry about, hey, in 3 years' time, we're going to be like 6 OS updates in, and the screens are all going to do different things? Like, is that on your radar in terms of from a design perspective?
The UX part is always there, and we have a huge team working on it. And if we are designing any car today, we need to design from 4 years down the line. We cannot design for today. We have to design the future. And that's the job of any designer in the car industry. We design for future.
Right.
And it's not easy. It tough at the same time. You have so many opinions. You get a lot of feedback from others. Especially color material designer's job is very hard. It's quite subjective.
Right.
You get a lot of opinions all the time. So you need to be very strong. You need to be a forward-thinking person and design the future.
Right.
That's our job.
Right.
Great. Yeah, sounds easy.
Right.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's actually a great.
That's a great place to wrap it up. Yeah, yeah.
Because you are designing the future. It was great chatting with you,
Yeah,
Rekha.
nice to meet you. Wish we could have done it in person, but this worked out.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for your time.
but before ending, I have seen your podcast, some of them. I just want to know, because you are in this industry and you have been interviewing a lot of people, you know the pulse of the market. How do you see the future, the electric future?
Oh boy,
It's coming. It's coming hard. It's coming fast. And the show's called The InEVitable because it is happening, and it just becomes one of those things. Like there is a point, we're basically at it, where the cost of a battery per kilowatt hour, when it gets below whatever it is, $120, $115, it's just cheaper to make an electric car for the manufacturer. So why would they bother with this complicated gasoline engine? Then you have all the advantages of, EVs are just, 4.5 times more efficient than gasoline-powered cars. 90% of electricity in a battery electric car can be used for propulsion. Only 20% of gasoline in a car goes to moving a car forward. The rest is just wasted as heat and sound. There was that wonderful Yale study where if we switched today, if every car in the U.S. became electric today, and you burn gasoline to power them, that's you'd go from 9 million barrels a day to 2 million barrels a day. There's no logical reason not to do that. And by the way, if it was wind and solar, even better.
Right. So your question is awesome, and I'm glad we have another 3 hours to talk about it, because that literally is how long, actually way more time. But everything Johnny said is accurate, but also does not get through the heads of most of our audience. And this is the most frustrating thing, not just for us, because we're literally just two guys talking about it, but it's for folks on your side. Like you are trying to design the future, build the future. The logic is all there. Now, people in the YouTube comments are going to go nuts. They're like, no, the battery. What about the recyclability? Where are you getting the rare earth metals? Like, it's all in China. Like, what's that environmental? Like, whatever. Like, that's precisely this moment in time. As Johnny said, yes, the cost per kilowatt hour is coming down. We know the math. The legislation, the market's also responding, right? Like I've been telling our team here, just look at the industry, look at the market in America in the last 6 months, right? We hit a tipping point in July where 5% of all new vehicle sales are now EVs in America. That's a big deal. That happened in China in 2018.
And remember, in the U.S., it's a similar size to the Chinese market, but it's 5% of 17 million new cars is a lot.
Is a lot. And it's coming at the same time as we just had the Biden Inflation Reduction Plan, which is incentivizing EV purchases. California announced that they're going to phase out internal combustion engines by 2035.
New York.
And New York just followed suit. Like all this is happening right now. And then I see, again, you poor car manufacturers, every time you roll out a new car, I just got this, a major automotive company served me a Facebook ad and about their new $30,000 EV, and it was the scrolling, all the comments were just horribly negative. You'll take the gas car from my cold dead hands.
Yeah. Look, I get that too. And there's and you can. There's a lot of what we call goalpost moving, which just means like it used to be. Well, if it doesn't go 300 miles, forget it. It's like now it goes 300 miles. Well, if I can't charge it in exactly 5 minutes, if it's not exactly the same experience I get at a gas pump, I won't buy it. Or once a year, I need to drive 1,000 miles. So and it's like, well, there's ways around that. You could,
Right. But long answers to your question. The good news is that the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt around this shift towards electric vehicles and then autonomous and software-defined vehicles, That's going to keep Johnny and I employed for a very long time. So, we are happy to talk about it and help people work through any anxiety that they have.
And it's also one last thing. It's also there's a lot of age. Age is a factor in this. So I was just in Spain with Audi, and I was talking with some very senior German people in Neckarsulm and at Ingolstadt, and they were talking about this very topic. And, a lot of them are like, you got to have this engine sound and this and that, and that's performance. And then one guy said, he goes, yeah, that's all true. But my 21-year-old son, like if I bring home an R8, he doesn't care at all. If I bring home an e-tron, him and all his buddies are there taking pictures of it. They're like, this is the future. This is cool.
Yeah.
And they just see like a supercar as just another supercar. We've had those for forever. It's not special. Right. So it's just a perspective.
Right.
I still like the R8.
Oh, great.
I'll just go out and say that. Right. R8's still pretty cool. But anyways.
But
that's nice. Good to know about your reflection on it.
Yes, and part of this is the reason why we are doing this and why we're talking to experts like yourself, because we think we know a thing or two, and turns out we're mostly wrong. And it's insights from the actual people that are doing the work and thinking ahead, and as you put it, designing for the future of the car, that make this, I hope, an entertaining and worthwhile experience. So, again, thank you for the time. We really appreciate the conversation, and it was great chatting with you.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Interacting with you digitally online. That's future.
Next time we'll do it in person.
Yeah, we'll talk to the PR team, and they'll fly us both to Gothenburg.
I've been all over Sweden, and I've never been there. I've been to Stockholm.
Let's go during the summer though.
Yeah, Malmo, Jokkmokk. I've been everywhere.
Right. Okay.
You should come and visit us.
Okay.
We will.
Let's do it.
All right. Cool.
Thank you.